Hello ladies and ghouls, and welcome to Super Fanboy Guy's Spooktacular versus System deck profile video. It is I, your host, Count Dracula, that will show you this brand new versus System deck profile, only for the special Halloween occasion. Okay, so maybe my Dracula needs a little work on, but I decided for Halloween to do a special Halloween Spooktacular, as I call it, versus System deck profile. So the reason why I'm calling this a Spooktacular versus System deck profile, because I wanted to do a deck profile that was kind of Halloween themed to be, since Halloween is just a couple of days away. And so I thought, what better way to kick off the Halloween season with a Halloween kind of theme versus System deck. So the deck that I decided to do for this profile was I decided to do, when I think of, scary creatures for versus System, Underworld is the first thing that comes to my mind. Now, there is a way you can make this deck that you can do just straight Underworld character cards, and the deck actually functions very well. And I might do a deck profile on that maybe sometime in the future. But I thought right now the Marvel Knights Underworld deck would be, kind of a good way to, just to show a deck that I've been playing for a while. And you'll notice that a lot of the cards in the deck have been, with the exception of, I think, maybe one or two cards in the deck. The deck is mainly from, the Marvel Knights era with, like I said, a couple of new cards from later sets. But this deck was pretty much made when Marvel Knights first came out. But for now, I thought I'd just do a deck profile on this deck. And also, spoiler alert, there are no Dracula themed cards in the deck. So none of the Dracula character cards are in this deck. And also, Dracula's Castle is not in this deck. But you can definitely change it around to fit those cards. But I just thought Marvel Knights and Underworld was probably the best team up to do for this deck profile, because you have Marvel Knights that, can team up with cards like Midnight Sun and Dagger. Dagger fetches you the Midnight Suns that you can use to team up your characters. And also in this deck profile, we kind of play an additional team affiliation in the Brotherhood team affiliation. And we only play the Brotherhood team affiliation because we have cards like Avalon Space Station and Lost City that give us benefits for having the Brotherhood team affiliation. But I'll kind of go over, like in all my videos, I'll go over the deck and, go through all the character cards, locations, and plot twists. So, and also I also want to mention that this deck is fairly cheap to make if you want to make it non-foil. I don't know what the exact number it is to make this deck, but I'll post it, I'll post it in the video later when I'm editing it. So, and so with that, we'll just go straight into the deck profile. So starting off with the characters, we're going to play Dagger, Child of Light. And what she does is you can discard her, then search your deck for a card named Midnight Suns, reveal it, and put it into your hand. Shuffle your deck. Use this power only while Dagger is in your hand. And then if you decide you want to play her on the field, she has an activate ability, return her to her owner's hand. So we mostly use her to get Midnight Suns, which is the plot twist we're going to talk about a little bit later in this video. But just a good way to search for the Midnight Suns card, and hopefully get some of your team affiliations. And like I said, the three team affiliations we want to team up is Marvel Knights, Underworld, and Brotherhood. So yeah, that's Dagger, Child of Light. For our 2-cost characters, we run Steel Winds, Cyborg Cyclist, Werewolf by Night, Jack Russell, and Black Rose, Roxanne Simpson. Steel Winds' ability is activate, put the top card of your deck into your KO pile. And her ability is we want to get a lot of character cards in our graveyard with this effect. So, we just want to get a lot of character cards in our KO pile and in general, because as we continue, we have ways of getting some of the characters back from our KO pile back to our hands. So, yeah, that's what Steel Wind kind of does, helps us fill our graveyards with hopefully character cards that we can use later in the game. Werewolf by Knife is concealed and has an ability at the start of the combat phase. If you control the initiative, Werewolf by Night gets +1 attack and +1 defense this turn. Otherwise, put the top card of your deck into your KO pile. So he's also another card that helps us fill hopefully our graveyard with character cards that we can later return to our hands later in the game. Or he could just become a 3/3, and it's like I said, this is kind of a Halloween themed deck, so why not play a werewolf in our deck? So yeah, that's what Werewolf by Night kind of does for our deck. Black Rose is also concealed and has activate, return an Underworld character card from your KO pile to your hand. So again, when we're milling with Steel Wind and Werewolf by Night with their effects, hopefully Black Rose can get us, our characters that we need later in the game back to our hand. For the 3-cost characters, we play Brother Voodoo, Jericho Drum, and Daredevil, Protector of Hell's Kitchen. Brother Voodoo has 2 abilities. Activate, discard a card, put any number of cards from your hand on the bottom of your deck, and draw that many cards. And he also has activate, discard a card, discard any number of cards, then draw that many cards. Use this power only if you control an Underworld character. Now, we want to definitely utilize his second ability the most, because if we have a handful of characters, let's say we have 5 characters in our hand, and we discard 1 character, we discard the 4 cards in our hand, and then draw 4 new cards. So it's a good way to get, a fast way to get a bunch of characters into our graveyard, and maybe to draw a new hand of, cards that might be useful. So that is Brother Voodoo. Daredevil has an ability, paid to endurance. Daredevil gets +2 attack this attack. Use this power only once per turn. So we play this Daredevil. I mean, there could be a bunch of different characters you can play in place of this Daredevil, but this Daredevil, like I said, this deck was made during a time when only a certain amount of cards were available. So this Daredevil was probably one of the most powerful cards during its time, but you can replace it with any card. But I mean, and Daredevil is just cool because he's like one of my favorite superheroes. So I wanted to play him in the deck just for, he can become a 6/4 on turn 3, which is decent. And just kind of a nice card to have. So yeah, that's Daredevil. For the 4-cost characters, we have Centurius, the Soulless Man, and Moon Knight, Mark Spector. Centurius has an ability, discard an Underworld character card with cost 2 or less, power up target attacker or defender you control. As we continue with this deck profile, that the ability of the power up characters will be good once we have the Lost City out and we're teamed up with Brotherhood. So every time we come powered up, we get +3/+3. So that's kind of like the combo that we use with this card, is to hopefully, power up and make our character stronger for the attack. So that's Centurius. Moon Knight has, he gets +3/+1 while you don't have the initiative. And then he has a boost 2 ability, which means when he comes to play, you can pay 2 additional resources. So that means you have to play a 4-cost character as a 6-cost character, essentially. But his boost ability is when Moon Knight comes to play, he gets +4 attack this turn if you have the initiative. Otherwise, he gets +6 attack. So another kind of, he's another character you can replace with probably like some of the newer cards that were printed. But he was also one of those cards that was just kind of, he was the best during the time. So obviously, this Moon Knight can be replaced with any different card, but yeah, that's Moon Knight, Mark Spector. Continuing with the 5-cost characters, we play Mephisto, Soul Stealer, and Blade, the Daywalker. Now, the Mephisto is kind of our payoff card when we have a bunch of character cards in our graveyard, because he has concealed, and his ability is reveal an Underworld character card from your hand, remove any number of target characters in a KO pile from the game. Mephisto gets +1 attack this turn for each card you remove this way. So keep in mind that this ability can also be for your opponent's graveyard too. So with us dumping a bunch of character cards in our KO pile, we can make him at least maybe a 10 attack or a 12 attack by turn 5, which is pretty strong. And even if you want to wait till like turn 6 to use his ability to, pump up to him, he can take out most 6-drops, which is pretty useful. And, since this is like a Halloween themed deck, we had to have, the essentially Marvel's version of the devil in the deck because, we're supposed to be like a spooky Halloween theme. So, why not put Mephisto, the king of the demons, essentially, or king of the devils, Demons or devils, or both, I guess. But yeah, that's Mephisto Soul Stealer, so he's our big payoff in the deck, for sure. And then Blade Daywalker has Loyalty, and you can only recruit him if you control an Underworld character. But Marvel Knights and Underworld characters you control get +2 attack while attacking and +2 defense while defending. And then he also has a boost ability, so he comes into play with 2+1/+1 counters. Now, every time I use him, I don't really use him for the boost ability. I mainly use him for the +2 attack and +2 defense abilities. And also, he's a vampire, and we got to keep vampire themes in our Halloween Spooktacular deck. So yeah, that's Blade the Daywalker. For our 6-cost characters, we run Blackheart, Son of Mephisto, and Luke Cage, Power Man. Blackheart has an ability, discard an Underworld character card. Blackheart cannot be stunned while attacking a character with cost 4 or less, or while defending against the character with cost 4 or less. So he's really good because if your opponents try to make like a team attack on him with like a bunch of little characters, then you could just discard a card so he can't be stunned by them. Or alternatively, if you attack into a character cost 4 or less, and they play something like a Nasty as a Surprise to try to stun you back, well, you can discard. And as long as the character is 4 or less, you won't be stunned. So that is Blackheart. Luke Cage has an ability. He has all team affiliations of each character you control. So pretty much if you have an Underworld out, he's an Underworld. If you have a Spider Friends, he's a Spider Friends. But I think the only printed team affiliations we have for this deck is Marvel Knights and Underworld. But, he's also a 14 attack, which is, pretty strong for a 6-drop. That's Luke Cage. For our 7-cost slot, we only run one character, and that's Varney, the first vampire. And he has an ability, activate target attacker gets -15 defense this attack, and Varney cannot be stunned this attack. Use this power only if you have 3 or more Underworld character cards in your KO pile. His ability will most likely come into effect because we have a lot of cards that discard in this deck, so having 3 Underworld in the graveyard is pretty easy, but it is kind of a downside that you have to activate him to use that ability. But I mean, somebody gets 15 defense and he can't be stunned. And that is Varney, the first vampire. Okay, now we move on to our location cards. Starting with our 1-cost location cards, we run 4 copies of Lost City. What this does is, if a Brotherhood character you control would become powered up, it gets +3 attack and +3 defense for this attack. Now, as we continue with the deck profile, we play Midnight Suns in our deck, and so the first copy of Midnight Suns that we play, we typically want to team up Marvel Knights and Underworld. But if we manage to get the second Midnight Suns out on the field, then we team up Marvel Knights and Brotherhood. So that way, all of the characters, our Underworld, our Marvel Knights, are teamed up with Brotherhood. So then we can use Lost World to start making all of our characters, when they become powered up, higher attack. And as we went through with some of the other characters, we play the Centurius that powers up. So if we have all 3 team affiliations on our board, then we can discard a 2-cost character with Centurius. So that way, and if they're all teamed up with Brotherhood, they get +3/+3. So yeah, that's kind of what Lost City does, and kind of part of the strategy of our deck as well. So yeah, that's Lost City. For our 2-cost locations, we play Avalon Space Station. And what Avalon does is you activate and discard a card from your hand, return target character from your KO pile to your hand, activate, discard a Brotherhood character card from your hand, return 2 target character cards from your KO pile to your hand. Now this Avalon, obviously we want to team up with Brotherhood when we have Midnight Suns out on the field. So another way for us to, utilize the Brotherhood team affiliation is with Lost City to make our guys +3/+3 when we power them up. And then also with Avalon Space Station, we can discard our Brotherhood card, which is going to be our Marvel Knights or Underworlds when they're teamed up with Midnight Suns. And we can add 2 character cards back from our hands. So yeah, just a nice utility card for us getting character cards back to our hand. We can also get a 1-cost or a 2-cost character back from our KO pile, and then discard it to Centurius again to give another +3/+3 with Lost City out. So yeah, that's Avalon Space Station. So now we're going to go over our plot twist cards, starting with our 1-cost plot twist cards. we have Misform, Wake the Dead, and Wild Ride. Misform, target underworld attacker you control cannot be stunned. This attack, draw a card. Characters you control cannot attack this turn. So Misform is really good as after you've attacked with all of your characters, and let's say you have one attacker left, and for an example, let's say that one attacker we have left is Mephisto, right? And so you decide to attack with him, and you'll notice Mephisto kind of has a low defense. I believe it's an 8 defense that he has. So if you're going to get stunned back and he's your last attacker, you can just activate Misform, draw a card, and he can't be stunned. It's just simple as that. And you don't necessarily have to use this on Mephisto. You can also use it on any other characters that you're attacking with. But typically, yeah, you want to use Misform on the last character that's attacking during your attack. That's the ideal. But there could be certain situations where you need to use it so your character doesn't get stunned. But yeah, that is Misform. Wake the Dead allows us to search our deck for a Underworld character card with the same name as a character card in play or a character in our KO pile. Reveal that card and put it into your hand, then shuffle your deck. So Wake the Dead is very good for getting, maybe if we need if we, on turn 1, let's just say we discard Dagger, Child of Light to get our Midnight Suns. Well, we can activate Wake the Dead and search for another dagger, since that first dagger we sent to the graveyard to get Midnight Suns is already in our graveyard. So Wake the Dead can allow us to get another Dagger, Child of Light, or any card in play or in our graveyard. So it's a decent search card, and that's Wake the Dead. Wild Ride is a card that searches your deck for a Marvel Knights character card, reveal it, and put it into your hand. Lose endurance equal to the card's cost, shuffle your deck. 8 out of 10 times with Wild Ride, you're going to search for a Dagger, Child of Light, but there is also certain scenarios where you might need to get, let's say you're on turn 4 and you don't have your 4-drop yet, and so you can activate this and get your 4-drop in your deck, which, if they're not teamed up, your 4-drop is the Moon Knight. So, yeah, Wild Ride. For 2-cost plot twist, we play Midnight Suns. Play Midnight Suns only if you control a Marvel Knights character. Choose a team affiliation. Characters you control, as well as cards in your hand, deck, and KO pile that have either the Marvel Knights or the chosen affiliation, have both affiliations. This is the card that we played to team up our Underworlds with Marvel Knights and anything with Brotherhood, essentially. So if you have 2 of these out on the field, you team up all of your characters with Brotherhood, Marvel Knights, and Underworld. Probably one of the signature cards in the deck. Definitely, if not the signature, then a very important card in the deck. So yeah, that's Midnight Suns. And concluding our plot twist cards, we have a Blast to play a discarded card, replace target location, or ongoing plot twist. So this is a good card in case if you're playing against a deck that, has a pesky location that you want to get rid of, or an ongoing plot twist that is giving you trouble. And, what one nice thing about this is when you discard a card, it could be any card, so you can discard a character card to send to your KO piles that you can use for fodder later. But it's always good to have something to get rid of non-ongoing plot twists and location cards. So, yeah, we run 2 copies of Have a Blast. And so that is going to conclude this deck profile of Underworld and Marvel Knights. Please let me know in the comments if you would like to make any changes to this deck. What you would do differently, given with all the cards that are available now. I know that there's a lot of Marvel team-up cards that would go great in this deck. For an example, I think it's called Death Embrace, the plot twist that allows you to, I think, search for 2 cards. One goes in your KO pile, one goes in your hand. That would definitely be an upgrade to this deck. And obviously, there's a lot of character cards that you can use to upgrade this deck as well. And yeah, this is just it's a very fun, nostalgic deck. I remember playing this deck, when Marvel Knights first came out, and obviously it's gone through different iterations, and Marvel Knights and Underworld are probably a lot more powerful now than they were back then. But yeah, that's that. I guess that'll do it. So I just want to say happy Halloween, everybody, and hope you enjoyed this Spooktacular deck profile, and we will see you next time. Bye. Ha ha ha.